Trauma is when someone is exposed to something that's so horrific, it psychologically distresses them, but at quite an extreme level. So for an investigative reporter, it could be something where you are reporting on a disaster in the first instance, and then you continue on reporting for months or years, and you immerse yourself in the vision. You're there on site, you're maybe seeing dead bodies, you could be interviewing grieving families, and that affects you to the point where you are very extremely distressed, to the point where you can't really function for the moment. Trauma is at the extreme end where you start having nightmares, or you start not sleeping, and you have intrusive thoughts about the stuff that you've been working on, the images or the graphic details starts to intrude when you don't want to be thinking about it, when you start to maybe withdraw and become a bit more isolated, where you get jumpy, because someone slams a door, but now all of a sudden your system is wired to be sort of in the fight-flight response. So it's when that gets stuck, it's when a journalist, an investigative reporter gets stuck in those sorts of things, where for months on end they can't sleep, and it starts to affect your life. But all of us will probably experience something in the moment of being exposed to a trauma, and usually though it passes. If someone's still experiencing these intrusive thoughts after about 3 or 4 weeks, then it's important to speak to someone who knows how to work with trauma. I'd recommend speaking to people who get you, and do that on a regular basis. If it starts to, really affect you and affects your relationships, and you're having these intrusive thoughts, certainly if you're the sort of person that's willing to go to counselling and speak to a counsellor, find someone who works with trauma, because it is a special field. So find someone who's a trauma therapist. The good thing about trauma is that if you have the effects, it's one of the easiest things to fix. So people shouldn't feel a sense of stigma, because it's just what happens to us. People feel there's a sense of weakness in themselves if they get distressed or get affected by trauma. But I really want to normalise it. It's like a workplace injury. I mean, it's similar to falling over and breaking your leg at work. When you're exposed to a lot of graphic content, whether it's by listening to it or seeing it, we can be negative, not always, but we can be negatively affected by it. I also want to make sure that people don't think that, if I'm going to do this sort of work and this exposure, I'm going to be psychologically harmed, because not everyone is, but sometimes some people might be, and there should be no stigma to that whatsoever.